Ahead on CBN NewsWatch, President Trump's pick for the Supreme Court will tell you what you want to know about Judge Neil Gorsuch and whether he'll carry on the Scalia legacy. Plus, Christians divided over the temporary ban on refugees. So what part of the immigration issue is up to the government, and what role should the church play? And the harsh reality of sex trafficking. See the ministry that's working with police to rescue victims instead of treating them like criminals. And thank you for joining us for CBN NewsWatch. I'm Ephraim Graham. President Donald Trump has picked a constitutional conservative for the open seat on the U.S. Supreme Court. Now the Senate battle begins to confirm Judge Neil Gorsuch. And as Paul Strand reports, it could be a fierce fight.
President Trump knew this choice really mattered to those who elected him. In fact, of voters who said the Supreme Court was their number one issue, 56% of them voted for him. Trump promised a constitutionalist in the mold of Antonin Scalia, and with federal appeals court Judge Neil Gorsuch, he's delivered.
I promise to select someone who respects our laws and is representative of our Constitution and who loves our Constitution.
The Supreme Court's work is vital not just to a region of the country, but to the whole. Vital to the protection of the people's liberties under law and to the continuity of our Constitution, the greatest charter of human liberty the world has ever known.
Veteran court watcher John Malcolm gave us his grade on the pick.
He will be a superlative Supreme Court justice.
Malcolm can understand from Gorsuch's past rulings and writings why Trump would choose him.
He has a sparkling writing style, much like Antonin Scalia. But more important than his sparkling writing style, he's a very, very deep thinker who's written some incredibly scholarly opinions on a whole host of issues.
Naming the nominee was the easy part, but Senate Democrats have promised a bruising battle over confirmation. You're likely to hear over and over again how Trump's pick is extreme and not mainstream. Earlier pledges to fight any Trump nominee led to this White House response to a question from CBN News' David Brody.
And before they've even heard who this individual is, you've got some of them saying absolutely no. I mean, that just shows you that it's all about politics. It's not about qualification.
When he was nominated to the 10th Circuit Court of Appeals, he was confirmed by the Senate unanimously. I only hope that both Democrats and Republicans can come together for once for the good of the country.
Malcolm knows the Democrats are going to attack, but he's just not sure how.
I mean, you can never really replace a legal lion like Antonin Scalia, but a fitting successor to Antonin Scalia. But Neil Gorsuch surely fits that mold, and I expect that at the end of the day, he will get confirmed despite some heated opposition from some pretty mad Democrats.
But Gorsuch says he's ready for whatever his critics bring.
I consider the United States Senate the greatest deliberative body in the world, and I respect the important role the Constitution affords it in the confirmation of our judges.
Senate Democrats have already delayed moving on some of Trump's cabinet choices, including Attorney General Jeff Sessions. But Gorsuch could face the hardest confirmation battle of them all. Paul Strand, CBN News, Washington.
And Brett Jacob from the Regent University School of Law joins us now to talk more about this. So tell us, how does Gorsuch compare to Scalia?
You know, I've known Antonin Scalia for a long time. He was one of my law professors back in the day, and he was one of the greats. We obviously don't know what Justice Gorsuch will do in that long term, but in terms of his judicial philosophy, the way he works as a judge, he's very similar to Scalia. He's got the same constitutionalist approach, looking at the text of the document rather than his own views of what he wishes the law were. Maybe a little less of an edge than Scalia. Nino could sometimes alienate people because he couldn't resist the bit of a push, when he wanted to make a point. I think Gorsuch is a little bit gentler. He's funny. He's personable. I think he's going to be a terrific Supreme Court justice.
Talking about his philosophy, are there any rulings that you can point to that give us sort of an inside look at that?
Well, he has, in a number of cases, I'm not going to give you an exact case right off the top of my head. In a number of cases, he has talked about how he wants to focus on the Constitution itself. On the Court of Appeals, it's a little bit different because they have to follow what the Supreme Court has said. Absolutely. And so we're looking at what his philosophy is, which is going to manifest itself when he's no longer bound having to follow a higher court's opinion.
No, let's talk about the process. Some Democrats have talked about filibustering even before this nomination. Do you think Republicans will need to deploy the nuclear option here?
It's possible, but I don't think it's likely. Gorsuch is a very mainstream judge. He's conservative, he's a constitutionalist, but he's very well respected. He's gets along with everybody, and it's very hard to make an argument that he's not a well-qualified judge. At this point, all I'm hearing in terms of serious opposition is the Democrats who say the Senate should have simply confirmed President Obama's pick, Merrick Garland, and they don't think any pick by President Trump is legitimate. But the reality is Merrick Garland is no longer on the table. I don't think President Trump would find anyone more palatable to the Democrats than Gorsuch. He will be confirmed, and probably with 8 Democrats to defeat a filibuster.
Okay, now, what do you think? Will he lean towards more of John Roberts' style of constitutional interpretation or Scalia?
I think he will be more like Scalia. Roberts is a cultural conservative, but the big divide here is justices who believe you have to follow the Constitution and justices who believe they can make wise policy. Roberts is a little more of a wise policy guy from a conservative perspective, which makes him different from Ruth Bader Ginsburg in that crowd. But I think Gorsuch is going to be a man like Scalia who follows the text of the Constitution.
And as you said, bottom line, he will be confirmed.
I believe he will.
All right, Brad Jacob, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you,
I
Ephraim.
much appreciate it. President Trump's decision to stop immigration from certain countries continues to draw fire. Days after signing an executive order temporarily halting America's refugee program, his administration is defending itself against accusations the ban is aimed at Muslims. George Thomas is on this story.
From the Gospel of Matthew, the 5th chapter.
He was there on Inauguration Day reading from the Bible.
God blesses those who are poor and realize their need for Him.
Now, Reverend Samuel Rodriguez and 7 other Christian leaders are urging Mr. Trump to reconsider his refugee policy. In a letter to the president, the 8 said, "The Bible teaches us that each person, including each refugee, regardless of their country of origin, religious background, or any other qualifier, is made in the image of God, with inherent dignity and potential. Their lives matter to God, and they matter to us." Franklin Graham, son of evangelist Billy Graham, also spoke on Inauguration Day. He supports the president's decision, but insists that it is the responsibility of the church, not the government, to come to the aid of refugees. Writing on Facebook, Graham said, "The president's job is not the same as the job of the church. As Christians, we are clearly taught in the Bible to care for the poor and oppressed." Trump on Friday signed an executive order stopping people from 7 majority Muslim countries from entering the U.S. for 90 days.
No hate, no fear. Refugees are welcome here.
That set off a firestorm of criticism against the president's move, forcing his administration to push back on accusations that the ban targeted Muslims.
This is not, I repeat, not a ban on Muslims. The Homeland Security mission is to safeguard the American people, our homeland, our values, and religious liberty is one of our most fundamental and treasured values.
Still, Speaker of the House Paul Ryan says enforcing the travel ban could have been handled better.
Now, I think it's regrettable that there was some confusion on the rollout of this. No one wanted to see people with green cards or special immigrant visas like translators get caught up in all of this.
In Hong Kong and elsewhere, people took to the streets demonstrating against the travel ban. In Paris, hundreds protested near the U.S. Embassy, some carrying posters demanding no hate, no racism, no Trump, and make America free again.
We really hope that there will be a stop to his order and that all will resume its course.
Meanwhile, 872 people who were previously screened by the Obama administration but prevented from entering under the ban will now be allowed into the United States this week. George Thomas, CBN News.
7 men are in prison for burglarizing German churches, but it's even more alarming what they plan to do with the money. They were funding Islamic Jihad in Syria. The men range in age from 24 to 27, and they broke into 5 church buildings and robbed them. 5 are German citizens, while 2 others were from Tunisia and another from Morocco. The men face 3 to 4 years in prison. The Austrian government is banning full-face veils in public places. That means Islamic burqas can no longer be worn in court, schools, and other public places. The ban also blocks police officers, judges, and magistrates from any wearing headscarves so they appear ideologically and religiously neutral. France was the first European country to ban the full face or face and body coverings worn by Muslim women 6 years ago. Back here at home, Senate Democrats have refused to take part in committee votes on two of President Trump's cabinet nominees. This indefinitely postpones the appointment of Representative Tom Price to head the Department of Health and Stephen Munchin's appointment for Secretary of Treasury. Finance Committee Chairman Orrin Hatch said he plans to reschedule the votes. He said Democrats, quote, ought to stop posturing and acting like idiots.
I'm really disappointed that my friends on the other side, our Democrats on the other side, are deliberately boycotting this markup. Why that's an important thing for them, I'll never understand, because these two nominees are going to go through regardless.
Meanwhile, the Senate committee has approved President Trump's education pick, sending her nomination to the full Senate for a vote. Liberals argue Betsy DeVos is not qualified, and now several Republican senators say they may not vote for her. Senators Susan Collins and Lisa Murkowski won't promise to support DeVos, a move that could threaten her confirmation. One reason some oppose her is because she supports school choice, so they see her as anti-public education. Others, though, disagree.
I don't know that Betsy is ideologically lockstep against all public education. I think she's against failing education.
DeVos needs the approval of 51 senators to be confirmed as Secretary of Education. Jerry Falwell, Chancellor of Liberty University, says he has been asked to lead a presidential task force on higher education reform. Falwell says the aim will be, quote, to get the government off the backs of higher education. He's scheduled to discuss the task force with President Trump on Wednesday. Falwell was offered the position of Education Secretary, but he turned it down for personal reasons, including he did not want to relocate his family. He says Betsy DeVos is a great choice. And still to come, here on CBN NewsWatch, the myth of safe abortions. Hear about the investigation that exposed hundreds of dangerous and even deadly violations at America's abortion clinics. New evidence refutes claims by the abortion industry that abortion clinics don't need inspections and tougher regulations. Paul Strand is back with us now to show us why this effort to regulate the deadly procedure is a personal one.
Pro-life forces were greatly disappointed this past summer when the U.S. Supreme Court agreed with the abortion industry that, as Justice Stephen Breyer put it, abortions taking place in an abortion facility are safe. The new report, Unsafe, shows years of documented abuse that proves the court made a mistake, as far as Deanna Wallace is concerned.
So what we did is look through thousands of public documents and found that over 227 abortion clinics in 32 states were responsible for more than 1,400 health and safety violations over the past 8 years.
5 of those 227 clinics blasted in this report belong to the group Whole Women's Health. Ironically, the same abortion chain that convinced the Supreme Court this summer abortions done in their clinics are completely safe. Overall, at least 65 of the clinics examined in Unsafe are chronic offenders, cited for the same health and safety violations over and over again. And what may be the most chilling fact of all, since the Supreme Court legalized abortion, more than 400 women have died getting one. By the way, the report gets personal about these women.
We highlight 11 individual cases from the past 8 years, women that died in abortion clinics, women that were permanently injured.
It was the personal story of a child, Deanna Bell, that led Wallace herself into the pro-life movement years ago.
She's a 12-year-old little girl that passed away in an abortion clinic in Philadelphia that hadn't been inspected in, I think, about 18 years. And to me, that's when I first started thinking about whether we were doing enough to protect women when they went into the clinics.
Abortion backers like to say the procedure is safe, legal, and rare.
The only one of those three things that is actually true in the American abortion industry is that abortion is legal. It is not rare. We know that there are more than 1.2 million abortions every single year, and we know that it's not safe.
And the new report, Unsafe, proves it. Paul Strand, CBN News, Washington.
Up next, she was forced into 12 years of prostitution and drug addiction. See how a new outreach helped Courtney and other victims break free. Human trafficking is one of the ugliest crimes imaginable, but now there is a new way to rescue women from the streets. It involves police sting operations and an opportunity for women caught in trafficking to start a whole new life. Heather Sells went on a police ride-along to show us how it works.
Sarasota, Florida offers tourists beautiful weather, excellent shopping, and a prime location on the Gulf of Mexico. There is, however, a dark, gritty side to this city, and it's here where human trafficking flourishes.
If you can, try not to pull over in a congested area.
It's why Sarasota police and the group Sail of Freedom organize undercover sting operations every month. Their goal, turn women from the streets to services that will help them start a new life.
She's crossing the street. She's going to be on the east side. She's actually coming your way.
Here's how it works. A male undercover officer poses as a buyer, searching the area where the sex trade thrives. Our car is one of several police units following him. Within minutes, he's found a young woman who quickly steps into his vehicle and agrees to his offer.
Yeah, I charge $25, you know, Okay, 25? Yeah.
That's already a good deal.
Moments later, police surround the truck to arrest her on a misdemeanor charge. But there's a twist. After taking her to the station, Sail of Freedom will offer her services instead of jail.
Once they get arrested, they're bonded out within a day at the most, maybe 2 days, by their pimp or trafficker. They would call this person their boyfriend. They would tell us that, you know, they're not a victim, they're not being trafficked.
To escape this cycle, Pentecost worked with Sarasota Police and the state attorney's office to develop the program Turn Your Life Around, or TYLA.
When they're arrested, we want alternatives. We want a diversion. We want a solution.
As a way to coax them off the street, Pentecost connects the women with what they need, be it shelter, clothes, or a job. Sometimes it's medical care for a pregnancy. Usually she's turned down by women who don't trust her, don't think they're being trafficked, or simply aren't ready for a change.
It takes 7 to 8 times statistically for a woman to say yes.
You try, and a lot of them aren't ready. And then when one finally comes on board and they're ready and they want help, you know, that's a huge success.
And TYLA's successes are growing. When it started in 2013, less than 1 in 5 women took the opportunity to leave the streets. Today, more than half choose to leave their pimps. Courtney left almost 2 years ago. Her life on the streets began when a trafficker convinced her it would support her drug habit.
He was selling me on this was money all day long. Anytime you wanted it, you could get money. He showed me a girl and what she was doing, and a car pulled up, and he says, "This is your one." So I got in the car, and my very first date was a maybe late 60s white old man that made me lay down in the car, pulled me into his garage so his neighbors couldn't see me.
45 minutes later, she handed her pimp $80, which he used to buy her crack cocaine. That addiction, plus a fear of retaliation, kept her captive for 12 years.
Once you've had your first beat, once you've been beaten your first time, once you've been raped your first time, once you've been drugged your first time, you know, those are vivid in your mind, and a paranoia comes to you.
After an especially brutal rape, Courtney met Pentecost during a sting operation. She agreed to detox and then to a trafficking shelter.
At this point, I was kind of wondering, what kind of place is this? But I was ready. Like, I didn't want to walk the street no more. I really didn't want to do it.
Courtney also found help in the TYLA court. A specialized program dismisses charges for trafficking victims who complete treatment and graduate from the program.
The mindset has changed substantially for our prosecutors. So I think that we are now looking at these women, mostly women, as victims. In the vast majority of cases, they are true victims.
Pentecost says most of the women were abused as children, paving the way for them to run into the arms of traffickers and an incredibly violent life.
We know that they're messing with death, whether it's suicide, violence, drug overdose. They are going through it.
Sarasota police also go after the buyers with another set of sting operations. They're not sure just how many buy sex each day, but they believe that if they can reduce demand and rescue women, they can save lives.
Sarasota's success in diverting women off the street is beginning to attract attention from other cities. And if its effectiveness continues, it could become a leader in the fight against human trafficking. Reporting in Sarasota, Florida, Heather Sells, CBN News.
CBN's Orphans Promise is helping young people establish a small business in Ukraine. Orphans Promise opened its first training center in Ukraine more than 10 years ago. The 13 centers offer educational opportunities, Christian discipleship, mentoring programs, English classes, and life training skills. And thanks to Orphans Promise, students from the training center in Vinnytsia, Ukraine were able to open their own small business selling honey. The centers were developed in order to teach young people how to be self-sufficient. You can learn more about Orphans Promise and what CBN is doing around the world by checking out cbn.com/international. Right now, it is time for your Wednesday word, and today I've actually got 4 words for you: praise, presence, protection, and provision. Consider this. Praising God brings you into His presence, and His presence brings protection and provision. You can call that the cycle of praise. So lift your hands, but more importantly, fix your heart on your Heavenly Father and rest in that cycle. With those words, make this a wonderful Wednesday. That is going to do it for this edition of CBN NewsWatch. Remember, you can find more of our exclusive coverage of the issues you care most about at cbnnews.com. We'd love to hear what you think about the stories you've seen here. You can do that by emailing newswatch@cbn.com. You can also talk to us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Hope to see you right here again next time. Make this a wonderful Wednesday.